Some people may have heard of the incident that recently took place in Salton City, California. For some, it was just another news story, but it wasn't just a headline. It was a mystery that gripped a community and left the investigators chasing shadows. Meanwhile, the city was screaming the name of a 17-year-old girl, and when the cries faded, a family was left with a devastating void, and a city was left with a haunting question. Who would want to harm Tania? As we look deeper, we find a story of stolen potential, followed by a forensic search for justice and a chilling reality of how quickly a life can be extinguished in the dark. This is the story of Tania Tovar. October 6th, 2008. The world would make way for Tania Tovar. She would be born to her mother, Charo Tovar, and her father, Josh Carter. Like a lot of relationships, it wouldn't work out between her parents, and they would split ways. The early days for Tania were no cakewalk. In fact, things got rough. She would be predominantly raised in her early years by a single mother, a mother who struggled to make ends meet. Although life had its challenges, they made it work. That is, until Tania turned 6 years old. It would be this year that she would be ripped from the care of her mother and placed in the foster care system. Now, it isn't exactly clear why she couldn't go stay with her father. That's information that isn't at my disposal, but I can tell you why she ended up in the system to begin with. This situation began on September 30th of 2015. On this night, a robbery occurred in Signal Hill, California. The victim on that evening was forced to lie down on his back. They took his jewelry, a watch, and anything of value. Due to the perpetrators being masked, they didn't get a look at their faces. They did, however, see them fleeing to a dark-colored sedan with a broken headlight. Minutes after the incident, the authorities would spot a car matching that description. It was sitting idle inside of a Home Depot parking lot. Inside of this vehicle, the driver is none other than Charo Tovar. Inside of the passenger seat is a boyfriend, Cleo Steele, who was accompanied by his friend, who sat in the back seat, a guy who goes by the name of Devin Johnson. Due to their vehicle matching the description, it was enough to perform a search, and when they did, they found a safe, a flashlight. They also found jewelry. These items would be positively identified by the victim as the items that were taken during the robbery. But that isn't where the story ends. There was one more person present in the car on that evening. It was 6-year-old Tania Tovar. When little Tania was questioned, she described seeing one of the men throw out a gun, as well as a bag of jewelry, right before getting pulled over. For their roles in this incident, Cleo Steele, who had priors, would receive 45 years to life. Devin Johnson would receive 19, while Charo Tovar, the mother of Tania, would receive 3 years. Seeing that Charo brought her daughter along to be a getaway driver, Tania would be taken away and placed in custody of the state. She has now been ripped away from everything she's ever known. At only 6 years old, I'm sure that she had a lot of hurdles to overcome. I'm sure she dealt with separation anxiety. She has now been placed in a world with all new faces. She's forced to grow up on a landscape where nothing ever stays the same. Everything is always changing. And when things start to seem unfamiliar, you revert back to what you're comfortable with. Let's fast forward to the year of 2025. Tania Tovar is now 17 years old. She's still in the foster care system. Her past is now effectively affecting her future. Her personal life was affecting her education. It was also affecting her behavior. She had had a few run-ins with the law and was even on probation. By now, she was living at a group home. For legal reasons, I can't say the name, but I can tell you this. That group home has had a few lawsuits thrown their way, but somehow they always seem to shake the allegations. Whatever was going on was enough to make Tania run. She was a frequent runaway. Some may say that Tania was a troubled teen, but I say she was a product of her environment. I can honestly say that with her, the things that she got into, the trouble, did not reflect who she was as a person. Tania is described as funny and flamboyant, someone who wore a permanent smile on her face, a girl who could light up any room she walked in. She was always smiling or laughing at every moment she had a chance. One day, in June of 2025, she would wake up and she would decide that was it. She would leave that group home in Hemet, California. But unlike other times, this time she wasn't planning on returning. She would once again run away, and she would be reported missing from that group home. But when it came time to find her, there was no urgency. In the eyes of the law, she was just another runaway that'll turn up soon. At this time, Tania is in contact with both her mother and her father. They do have a relationship, and while she's on the run, she stayed in touch with them. And then, December 1st of 2025 rolls around. It would be as if time stood still, because on this day, Tania would go silent, and in the midst of the silence was an eerie feeling, a feeling that something was off. On the day of her disappearance, Tania had spoken with her mother, and she let her know that she was on her way to Palm Springs, California. But after that, nothing. A person who was normally active on social media went quiet, and then her phone stopped sharing its location. After repeated attempts to reach Tania went unanswered, her mother would officially report her missing.
Moving along, the FBI is investigating the disappearance of a teenager from the Imperial County. Tania Tovar, who also goes by TT Tovar, has been missing since December 1st. She was last seen in Thermal, California. Tania is 17 years old, 5'6", and about 105 pounds, with brown hair and brown eyes. She may have a tattoo on her left hand that reads Charo and a red heart tattoo above her right eye. Anyone with any information is urged to contact the FBI.
The investigation into the disappearance of Tania Tovar would start slow. Due to her past, she would immediately be labeled a runaway. Although she was believed to be a runaway, proper protocol still has to be followed, so they would begin with interviews. In the process, they would learn that Tania did not travel to Palm Springs, but rather got a ride to Thermal, California. Her reason for the trip? She was meeting an unidentified male. Tania had obtained a ride from a friend, but when the friend was questioned, they didn't know who the guy was. The authorities would obtain the location of the home, and they would go to the address, accompanied by Tania's mother. The police would go to the door, and they would knock. But when they did, no one answered. Tania's mother would press them further. She would ask them to check again, but when she asked, she was told that there was nothing they could do. Without concrete evidence or a warrant, they were powerless. I want to be clear, it wasn't the authorities that tracked down this location. It was Tania's mother. She had even provided proof that Tania's phone had pinged in the area right before it went silent. After investigating a little further, the occupant of the home would be identified. The person in question was 51-year-old Abraham Feinblum. Abraham was a guy with a troubled past. In fact, his most recent run-in with the law was being charged with false imprisonment. He would be charged in the year of 2018, but by January of 2019, the charges would be dropped, and Abraham was once again a free man. The charge in itself is alarming. We have a guy who is known to hold someone against their will, and our teenage girl is missing, with her last known location being at his home. Despite knowing this information, the authorities didn't press any further. In fact, Tania's mother says she didn't feel like they were taking it serious at all. On December 21st of 2025, her mother would take to her social media account and begin posting videos of what looked to be Tania inside of the home that she was dropped off at. The post seemed normal, and in one post, you can even see a guy walk past her in the background. It's even eerie in a sense, knowing that she's now missing. Just hours after her mother made this post, the Salton City Police Department would respond to a call about human remains being found. When they arrived, it was a scene that was unsettling. For starters, the remains weren't intact. It was only a single leg. Aside from that, a quick search of the area would yield nothing, no further findings, and no further evidence.
Developing tonight, the Imperial County Sheriff's Office is asking for your help after a disturbing discovery near the Salton City. Deputies say they found a human leg on December 21st and launched an extensive search by foot and air, but no other remains or evidence have been found. Investigators are still working to identify the remains and figure out how it ended up there. If you know someone who's missing or was traveling through the area and has not been heard from, call the Imperial County Sheriff's Office.
With no real way to immediately identify the remains, it would be processed as a Jane Doe. When Tania's mother had discovered that they had found remains in the area, her heart would skip a beat, and rightfully so, because the remains were discovered just under a mile from Abraham's home. So she would brace herself. she would pick up the phone and call the agency. When she spoke to them, they told her that the leg most likely belonged to a male, and it was a very low chance that it was Tania. So at that moment, she was given hope. And with that hope, she would continue to fight. She would continue to post her daughter on social media. And before you know it, her story was all over.
More breaking news. We're getting answers from the FBI in a disappearance case we've been pressing for days. And tonight, the FBI confirming it is now officially investigating the disappearance of a teenage girl last seen in Thermal.
We were the first on scene Friday when FBI agents searched a home on Harlequin Court in Thermal. Since then, we've been back to the location several times, including again just yesterday, trying to make contact at the home, but nobody answered the door. We've also been talking with neighbors on the street. They tell us investigators went door to door asking questions. Tonight, one pair of neighbors say their father told police he saw Tania back in December walking the street.
I saw the girl in the street walking around before they told us he was missing.
In the midst of searching, Tania's mother would receive a call one day, and in this call, they were requesting her DNA. When the results came back, they had a match, and on February 6th of 2026, the remains would be officially identified as 17-year-old Tania Tovar.
Hi, I'm Alondra Campos with NBC Palm Springs, and I'm currently at one of the sites of the investigation that is being carried out by FBI and Imperial County Sheriff's Department in relation to the disappearance of 17-year-old Tania Tovar, a Hemet resident who went missing back on December 1st. Now, behind me is the site of where some of her human remains were found and confirmed earlier this week by officials. Now, you can see some FBI vehicles and sheriff vehicles parked there around the perimeter. Earlier, we did see some officials digging through the ground, possibly looking for some evidence that could lead them to some answers. Now, this investigation is still ongoing and underway, and this site is at the corner of Portsmouth and New Haven Road. It's just a half a mile away from the home that is currently being searched, where Tania Tovar was allegedly last seen before she disappeared.
February 13th, 2026. On this day, the authorities would show up to Abraham's home to serve a warrant. This warrant was for his arrest. Instead of complying, Abraham would leave out of the back door of his home. He would jump a fence and attempt to evade capture. Abraham wouldn't get far. They would catch him. And when they did, he was holding a passport as well as foreign currency. He would be taken down to headquarters and charged with murder.
A 51-year-old man is now in custody in connection with the death of Tania Tovar.
News Channel 3's Garrett Hoddle began covering this story back on February 6th when federal agents were seen executing a search warrant at a home in Salton City.
They say that a front door of a foster home is a gateway, a sanctuary. They call it protective custody, as if the words themselves are a shield. But for a child like Tania, that door doesn't always lead to safety. Sometimes it's just a revolving door into a different kind of darkness.
Neighbors tell News Channel 3 around December 23rd, shortly after law enforcement activity at the home, multiple security cameras were installed.
When a child enters the system, they aren't looking for a bed. They're looking for a witness, someone to actually see them. But instead, they become a file number, a checkbox. They learn early that the world is made of temporary spaces and borrowed last names. And when you feel like you belong to everyone, you start to feel like you belong to no one. That's the real danger. Not just the physical walls, but the hunger for a connection. Any connection that makes a girl look at a stranger and see a savior.
Always been very odd, scary. Since we moved here in 2015, we've always called him the scary man in the scary house.
It's a vulnerability that guys like Abraham can smell from miles away. And then the unthinkable happens. The system that was supposed to be a fortress becomes a ghost story. We trade supervision for search parties. We trade placement for crime scenes. And when a murder occurs, it isn't just one person who failed. It's the sound of 1,000 safety nets snapping all at once. We told Tania that we were here for her. We promised her a future, and we couldn't even give her a tomorrow. The world told her she was safe. Well, guess what? We lied. And lies will always have consequences.
I have to complete this. If it kills me, I don't care. I have to complete this for Tania. I need to find justice for her. So I don't care about me right now. I don't care how sick I get, if I lose my voice, if I lose my life, if I lose my heart. I cannot sleep. I cannot rest until I get justice for Tania. I've been receiving every single tip, every single clue. I've been checking up on everything, so I can't. I have to also thank people for sharing my daughter's story on TikTok, on Snapchat, on Facebook, on all the platforms. I appreciate it so much, because a lot of them didn't know her, but they took it serious and they prayed for her to come home.
All praises to Charles. She's did a great job, and she's doing a great job. If it wasn't for her, we wouldn't have known nothing.
Abraham Feinblum, he was back in court today for a preliminary hearing. Didn't go as planned. As News Channel 3's Garrett Hoddle reports, he's live in the Breaking News Center with the very latest developments, including some new information about the Salton City man's prior criminal history. Garrett.
Thanks, Jeff. Feinblum appeared in Imperial County Court this morning. He's facing one charge of murder with a firearm enhancement in the death of Tania Tovar. On Sunday, I spoke with the Tovar family over FaceTime. They were at a vigil in Salton City. Family, friends, community members gathering there to honor Tovar's life and call for justice. Family members described Tania as adventurous and caring, always trying to stay positive despite facing challenges.
She had the most beautiful, bubbly, upbeat personality. She had energy through the roof. I am energetic, and she gave me a run for my money. So I always remember her just always dancing, always singing, always wanting to make TikToks. That was her.
A lot of family members and friends described to me how funny Tania is and that she likes to joke. They all talk about how unique her laugh is.
During his arraignment, a few more details would come out about the case. They would even disclose a cause of death. When they initially found the remains, the leg itself had pieces of bullet fragments, which led the authorities to believe that she died due to a gunshot wound. Abraham Feinblum has entered a plea of not guilty. He is now awaiting his trial. Due to this still being an ongoing investigation, they haven't released much. One thing is certain, Abraham Feinblum wasn't a spur-of-the-moment situation. They know that Tania and Abraham had been in contact since at least October of 2025. It isn't clear exactly what their relationship was, but if you think long enough, I'm sure you can figure it out. What happened to 17-year-old Tania Tovar is completely tragic. She was someone that was young, with an entire life ahead of her, a life that she hadn't even begun to live. It's just sad to think that after essentially living a life of misery, going through the foster care system, being ripped away from her parents, and in the end, this is how it ended. But to add insult to injury, the rest of Tania Tovar hasn't been recovered. She's still out there, somewhere, waiting to be found. It's yet another reminder to be vigilant, be aware. Everything isn't what it always seems. My heart truly goes out to the family. Rest in peace, Tania Tovar. Thank you for being a light for others. I truly hope you receive the justice that you deserve.